Hey people, how's it going? Um, I know this isn't the type of channel where I usually put content like this out, but I don't know. I've been seeing a bunch of stuff lately, people freaking out. I think they're overreacting about this whole virus, and so I thought I'd try to be the voice of reason a little bit here. Now, I don't have any medical expertise or anything like that, so take everything with be skeptical, is what I'm saying. Not just of me, but of all the reports you're seeing and the news you're seeing. But yeah, there's a whole lot of things that don't add up about this, and I think that the picture it paints is that people are overreacting. So anyway, here's a couple of sites that I've been looking at. I've been doing a little bit of research, and I just ate some food. So my throat that I have to clear is because I just had a nice Whopper. So that's how concerned I am. But anyway, here's some information here for you. So they're saying that the spread rate and the infection rate and the death rate they're really high, but there's a lot of problems in some of the statistics that they're talking about. See, the spread rate is based on a formula that they just use for determining like pandemics and epidemics. They basically just take how many people are infected. They take how much time, and it's a real simplistic equation. I don't remember all the factors, but there's not a whole lot of them. And then they just extrapolate from these few statistics the spread rate. It's not actually based on how many people, like on actual individual cases of how many people got infected from this person, how many people got infected from that person, how quickly. They just take these numbers at an aggregate level, they combine them, and they come up with this factor, and that's the rate that they go with. But if there's any of these statistics that are miscalculated or misclassified, the spread rate is going to seem really high, which is what I think is going on here, because many of the numbers are wrong. First of all, a whole lot of the numbers that were coming out of China were very suspect. Their government's very suspect. We don't know. We can't verify any of it. They didn't let the World Health Organization in there for some time. Then they started over-reporting. They started reporting a bunch of numbers which they had previously kept quiet, which made it appear that there was a huge spike suddenly. Very suspicious, and so I'm more or less disregarding most of that from what I'm thinking might be going on here. And the other statistical outlier is Italy, where they have a really high death rate, but they haven't been treating the elderly for most of the last week. If you just stop treating the elderly for the flu in anywhere else in the world, the death rate will go up from the flu because you're not treating them. So if they're overreacting to every case of the flu, they're overloading their hospital system, and then they stop treating the elderly entirely for the flu anywhere, the death rate will go up. So here's a couple of other things that are interesting. So that's what I think is pretty much going on. It's a statistical illusion based on misclassifying cases. And so based on that, I started looking into a whole bunch of the data here. And first of all, you can see that pretty much for everywhere in the world, the total death rate, this is March 15th, by the way, the total death rate, also here's a cool website that you can see a bunch of statistics. I'm looking at this place right here. It's got a whole lot of stats on this page, and you can look at different breakouts. And it all looks pretty scary at first glance, but until you recognize that these numbers are ridiculously small compared to just the regular flu that we have every year. Every year we have a flu season. Look at the averages on this. Okay, so this is the column for deaths. And look at some of these numbers. They're in the 40,000, 50,000, 90,000 range. Very high numbers. I previously had heard it was around 36,000 a year on average, but that's probably a pretty old stat. But it's still, I guess it's still around there every year. Now, so if we had, let's just go with a small year here. Here's this one, and I just got a little spreadsheet open here. So this is for a year. Apparently, the flu season doesn't. They more or less try to record it from a certain part of the year to another part of the year. So they go from like the fall and into the next year. So they don't line them up year by year because they consider them different seasons that span the new year. But anyway, just very conservatively, well, just roughly, we're just going to do, if this is a year's worth of deaths. Why did it not? Hold on. I don't usually use this, so it's doing stupid stuff. Okay, so here's about how many you would expect to see per month. Now, that is quite a bit higher than what we do see. Here, let me just try to do this a little different. I'm not a spreadsheet whiz. And right now we have, so here's the numbers that we have of this new, coronavirus. I'm going to call it the cornholio virus because everybody's running out needing TP for their bunghole. But it looks like this CDC site has been trying to track some of this since a little over 2 months. So if this is the number for 1 month and this is the number for 2 months, yeah, I know this is a little oversimplified, but I'm going to get into why it seems relevant to me in a second. So, well, actually, that was the number for 2 months. Anyway, so I'm just gonna. Okay, let's see. I'll do this. So we have 90 times more cases of the regular flu than we do for the coronavirus, of deaths, not just cases, of deaths actually. So the regular flu is 90 times more deadly so far as we know up to this point. And some people are going to be saying, oh no, but this is a new virus, the flu's been pre-existing, the new virus is spreading like crazy. Well, is it? Because that's the other thing that I've been considering. How do we know how fast it's actually spreading? Because like I said, those numbers that they use for determining spread are based on just really aggregated numbers. And do we have accurate numbers of those? I don't think we do, because let's see. I've been seeing articles for weeks talking about how we don't have adequate tests for determining who's actually got this yet. We don't know enough about the virus itself. There's not enough tests for it, and there's no availability of these tests. There's a whole ton of articles you'll see all over the place about these tests not being available in the U.S. And here's some interesting data. They're talking about how many people have actually been tested. Now this number is 7,600. Let's see how many cases there are measured in the U.S. Supposedly we have almost half the number of people tested are active cases, supposedly infected with coronavirus. But that's absurd, because also look at this. Let's see, from the CDC's own website, they're talking about how many labs are actually even capable of testing for this. Let's see, is this the right page? Testing. Here's how many labs are actually even capable of testing for this over time. You'll notice a lot of zeros and not a whole lot of labs, hundreds. And how many specimens are they actually testing per day? We're looking at a lot of these are in the two-digit range. I mean, these are low numbers. They're barely testing anything until more recently. It started to ramp up a little bit. Now, what I can't find is the correlation between how many people are actually tested. I mean, I can't find how many people are actually tested positive for this test, because I can't find actually confirmed, tested, verified cases. I only see assumed cases. These are all assumed. That's what I'm getting at, is that these cases, they're largely assumed. They don't know for sure that these people actually have it. They're treating them as if they have it because they're trying to follow a chain of infection but the person that they're assuming is infecting other people, he was also assumed to have been infected. They literally did not have the tests or the testing capacity or capability to determine how many of these cases were real. So they just had to assume, based on best intentions and based on trying to get out in front of it. But they could have been misassuming incorrectly the entire time. So how do we know? There's two ways we can know. We can find countries that had more availability to more tests and see what numbers they're coming up with. And fortunately, there is such a country. Let's see, where was that site I was at? Okay, so here's the number of tests that they have per population and how many people were tested. And you'll see the outlier here is South Korea. They have more tests per people and than any other country. More testing per person. And what they found is out of 189,000 people, they have 8,000 cases. So let's do a quick calculation. 189,000 divided by, what was it, 8,000? So they have, can I do that right? 8,000, 189,000. Oh, I did it backwards. Hold on. I know I'm filling everyone with confidence in my skills here. All right, so that's a very tiny number, like 0.04. That's a like less than 4%, or around 4% of the people they tested that were already suspected to have had it came up positive, supposedly. That's pretty damn tiny compared to the United States, which, from the numbers we have available, it looks like about half of the people tested are, best case, supposedly, have it. So that's very unlikely that half the people tested actually had it. More likely, we don't know what relation the number of tested actually has to the number of to this number right here, because we don't know that these are confirmed, and we don't know how many tested, from the numbers I could find, are actually testing positive. All I can find is how many tests there are. So on the worst case scenario, this is all the testing that we've done, and every single one of these people was I hope that's still lined up. Anyway, every single one of these people was tested. Then it would be half compared to South Korea's, which is 4. I think it's much more likely that these numbers are completely assumed. There is no known relationship we can come to from the number of tested to the number of infected in the U.S. And even in South Korea, I would imagine a good number of them were assumed. And these numbers are all high, even for South Korea, which is saying that they have it under control, and that it's they're having fewer and fewer confirmed cases. They have the most tests. They're showing the most. They're showing the least concerning numbers, and they think they have it under control. They're the ones in the position to have the most understanding of what they're dealing with, because they have the most testing so far. I assume that as other countries like the U.S. and others get more tests, they will see that their numbers are also not nearly as dire as they've been warning everybody. And yeah, there's a few outliers, China, Italy, and Iran. But the reason why these, I think, are worse than normal is, like I already said, Italy, they stopped treating the elderly like a week ago. So they're just letting the elderly die. And in China, its communist country completely dominates their media. They have complete control over what people are allowed to know and think. And they could be saying anything they want. They could lie about anything they want. We have no idea what might have actually happened in Wuhan. But how big is Wuhan? 11 million people. So even the worst case estimates I saw of how many people had died there, based on conspiracy theories, was 13,000 or something like that. And that's well under what they're reporting. That's a very big city. Anything could have happened there. Anything localized, and just, basically what I'm getting at is the initial numbers that they were saying, that were estimating the deadliness of this, we're not seeing them anywhere else in the world. No other country is actually showing that same spread rate, even with the miscalculated, aggregated extrapolations of those death rates. Nobody else is seeing it. So I don't, I basically am just disregarding them because I don't trust their government or the amount of information they let out. And it's the same with Iran. It's a totalitarian regime. We have no idea really what goes on there. And who knows? They could be using this for political purposes, as they're trying to do in the United States. Yeah, I think that's another big factor here that people are underappreciating, is that the media is desperate to overhype this because they hate Trump. And regardless of what you think of Trump or not, the economy has been fine. It's been very well off, and even people like Bill Maher and others have said that they wish there was an economic disaster, even if it bankrupted people and lost them their life savings, just to make Trump look bad. And then literally, like, what was it, a week or two later, this all starts. I guess he got his wish. But my point is that they're overblowing this for political purposes. They're trying to crash the economy so they can make Trump look bad. They don't care who it hurts. So that's just a possibility. Pretty much everything I'm talking about, I could be wrong, but I guarantee you there's at least some degree of this actually happening. The question is, to what degree is it happening? Because they haven't tested everybody. They've definitely made assumptions. We don't know exactly how many people are actually getting some sort of new virus, or how much of it is just the flu. Well, I mean, we have some idea, but we don't have a clear idea. There's no clear, I can't find any clear information about how many people are actually testing positive for this, because these numbers are not based on positive tests. These numbers are based on reports, which are largely assumed. So, yeah, we don't have a clear number. There's definitely a degree of misrepresentation going on here. The only question is, how big of a degree? Is it 1%? Is it 5%? Is it 95%? Is it 100%? We don't know. In some countries, I assume it's 100%. I assume it's at least in the 90% complete misreporting. And even if these numbers are 100% as threatening as we're told to believe they are, it's still very low. These are still very low numbers. Okay, so there's two ways we can actually determine what we should expect long term. There's two things we should look at. So they made these these predictions about the rate of spread, and they look pretty intimidating right now. But the thing is, this is pretty exponential looking, and as it will continue, it will either continue to exponentially grow until the point where it overtakes the normal flu for the year, in which case, apparently, I would be wrong, because if what I'm saying is true, what I'm saying is possible, if it actually is true, these numbers will never exceed the normal flu. They couldn't, because if it's the normal flu being misidentified, these numbers cannot go past the normal flu for the span of time within the current flu season, which I guess we're on, like, I don't know, probably the 5th month of the normal flu season, something like that. If these numbers go well beyond what the flu is, then even if they were 100% assuming every case of the flu was this coronavirus, but it still kept going, then obviously there's an actual new virus that really is spreading more than the flu. But so far, we're not even close. We're like not even 100th or 137th to a 90th of the normal numbers. Not even close. So we got a ways to go to figure out whether that's the case. And just keep seeing if this exponential growth curve continues, because if it starts to level off, as testing, especially as tests. Look, I mean, just look what they did in South Korea. As their tests became more and more available, the number of new cases reported went down. Let's see. Do we have that data? Yeah, look at this. So this is theirs. Their curve's already dying. Here's the number of new daily cases. Look at this. As their testing increased, the number of new cases they could confirm has gone down. The number of active cases is going down. This is what the virus really is. They got a better view at it. They got a better look at it. They got better testing data than anybody else in the world, and they're finding that it's hype. Okay. So yeah, people, don't overreact. Don't panic. Don't run out and rob a Quickie Mart, or don't do anything. Don't quit your job. Don't go into your bunker yet. This is drastically overhyped. The average news cycles, 2 to 4 weeks. I assume that this whole hype will probably be over within about that time. And as the tests become more and more available, we're going to find that all these cases just vanish into the wind. And in another year or two, the coronavirus, practically all of you will have forgotten it. And the few that do will remember it the same way we remember SARS or swine flu or Spanish flu or whatever the other hype, illnesses that popped up and then everyone freaked out about, and then they disappeared 2 to 4 weeks later. All right, so anyway, y'all, have a good one. I hope somebody found this informative. I could be wrong, of course. Do your own research. There's lots of sites that have a lot of statistics, but just also keep in mind that if you misrepresent only certain statistics within a certain context, you can make anything practically appear true. I mean, there's books literally written about this by jerks like that guy Frank Luntz, or whatever was it, Luntz? How do I spell his name? Frank Luntz. This guy, he's written whole books about how you can just deliberately misrepresent only certain statistics to make a picture appear any way you want. And it's really clever. Politicians use it to misrepresent facts as the whole truth all the time. Technically, the facts that they're putting forward are true within a certain context, but they misrepresent the larger picture. Like if you compare, the U.S. Gun violence rates, like, well, I'm getting caught up, but if you understand my point. You could just look at one piece. Like, I'm not going to get into examples because I don't have one ready to go. I hadn't planned on talking about that. But yeah, do your own research. Try to look at the larger picture, and always ask yourself, whenever you're comparing something, whether it's good or bad, relative to what? You always have to ask relative to what. These rates are staggering, but relative to what? Because relative to the normal flu, so far they're not. So anyway, be reasonable. Have a good one. See ya.